Hey, Alicia Novin here, and today I wanted to give you 5 different things that you should try out in your first 30 days on the job. Here we go. That first month on the job can be really interesting. Usually you're drinking from the fire hose in terms of learning everything that you have to learn about the company, how to request time off or equipment, or just general HR kind of paperwork stuff. But there's a few things I wanted to discuss that you should try to do in that first 30 days to really set yourself up for success. So here we go with number 1. Sometimes I like to cover very obvious things because oftentimes there are some organizations that aren't so good at doing those obvious things. And so I want to start there because they are obvious because they're just so important. So the first one is really just about doing your core functions. If you're a coder, that means fixing bugs, shipping code to production, reviewing a PR, doing a code review, just doing your general core tasks. I've seen some organizations where some people aren't ramped up for the first month, maybe the first few weeks are just waiting on hardware. And if you're in that kind of position, that's obviously very difficult to do, but find a way to even mimic those tasks. So sit down beside someone and do some pair programming. Just go through those motions so that you can get that basic line of what you're going to be doing there under your belt, and you can get comfortable doing so. Hopefully in that first month you're meeting with your manager and your team lead pretty regularly. But if you're not, or if your manager doesn't take a formalized approach to one-on-ones, ask that they do so. Especially in that first few months of your time there, having regular one-on-ones to know how you're progressing is going to be really, really important. You want to use those one-on-ones as an opportunity to get to know your manager, to build a relationship, and to make sure that you're getting constant feedback and honest feedback about how you're progressing. Ultimately your manager and your team lead, they'll be the ones who will determine how successful you are and what kind of work you get exposed to. And so when you have that relationship early on, you'll be able to better establish what kind of stuff you get exposed to and what you get to work on. So that's a really important one, and don't just put it off. And sometimes you have to proactively pursue it and make sure that those meetings are happening. Your organization might have an orientation, training, onboarding program that might last 1 or 2 days or maybe even a week. And during that time, you'll probably get exposed to the product or products that you'll be working on while you're there. But if they don't have that, or even after you've gone through it, you want to make sure you're continuously becoming more and more familiar with that thing that you're working on. So put yourself in the shoes of your end user and understand the way that they'll be using the product. So do some research and see what's online, get a sense of what the competitors are, because the better you understand that product and how it's ultimately going to work, the better you'll be attuned to how you need to code for it. And keeping in line with the last one, regardless of whether you're a junior, an intermediate, or a senior person, spend some time to really understand what the vision is and define it in your own words. So after you spend some time trying to understand the customer and how they use the product, after you've gone through orientation, spend that time to really set it in your own words to say, I think this is what we're trying to do here, and I think that this is the ultimate goal. And I think this is the way that we're going to accomplish that goal. When you put it in your own words, you start to internalize it, but you want to then compare it with the actual vision that's established by the organization. So maybe with your manager on your one-on-one, you can bring up the vision that you've defined and compare it with what they have. That way, you're better at prioritizing how you approach the work. Maybe you have someone who's prioritizing your backlog and a work item in the backlog. But regardless of that, when you actually take a work item and you start trying to think of where do I want to start on this bit of work, knowing the purpose and knowing the vision will allow you to better think through that problem and address it better overall. It's obviously very hard to intentionally make a mistake unintentionally, but what I'm really driving at here is that there often is no better way to learn than from having made a mistake and seeing the impact of it. Now hopefully the organization, the team that you're a part of, is geared so that someone who is brand new doesn't really make the kind of mistake that cascades and becomes a bigger issue. But very quickly, whenever you make a mistake, you'll see what kind of safety nets and guardrails you have, how your manager and the rest of the team supports you when a mistake occurs. And ultimately, it gets at this idea that when you fail, which you ultimately will, it'll happen. It'll allow you to understand how you failed and how you can grow from it. So just know that it's going to happen, and in knowing that it will inevitably happen, it'll allow you to be a lot more analytical and remember that, oh yeah, there's this video that Alicia did that talked about this exact moment, and I should use this as an opportunity to grow from it, and I shouldn't panic. It'll happen, but use it as that opportunity to learn and grow. And actually, as a bonus that I wanted to slide in here, there's a great book that you should check out. It's called The First 90 Days, and it talks about how you should spend the first 90 days in any kind of new job. It's geared more towards those who are more senior, more leadership and management individuals, but even if you're a junior person, even if it's your first job, it actually talks about a lot of concepts and a lot of approaches and things you want to have in the back of your mind about how you want to spend your first 90 days. It talks about building a relationship with your manager, which is probably one of the most important things. And it talks about building goals for those first 90 days. So it's a great book. It's a quick read. I definitely recommend checking it out, and you'll learn a lot from it. Those are the 5 plus 1 extra bonus things that you should do in your first 30 days on a new job. I hope you found this helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully it gave you some things that you can think through and consider doing. If you found this helpful, if you had any feedback or comments, please send them my way. Otherwise, I hope you'll check out a podcast that I'm doing called Increments. It's where we create space to think through how we want to grow in our careers. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and you'll find it at increments.dev. Thanks a lot.